So I've done all my Anki out. And hold on, let's pull this up, medify. Actually, let me put a YouTube video as well. No, it was something about the UCAT. It wasn't Dr. Mike. UCAT Doctor something. Oh, we'll watch that anyway, but it's like UCAT data something. Their future docket is this guy.
Hey guys, Jack here. And today I guess I just wanted to have a chat about how to cram for the UCAT, as UCAT season is already upon us. One thing that you need to understand is no matter how good you are at doing the questions, when it comes to doing a full mock or full UCAT exam, the entire situation changes, right? You might be able to do each section very well independently, but when it's all meshed together, the pressure, the anxiety, the stress, it can really get you. You might not be used to doing 2 hours at a time. So my best starting off piece of advice is to make sure you start off by doing some full mocks. Make sure that's done, and you actually understand what it feels like to be sitting there for 2 hours straight, torturing yourself. Enjoying the UCAT before you properly move on to more detailed practice in terms of fixing each section up. Now, I guess moving away from that big piece of advice, let's talk about each section independently. Now, with VR, by this time, you probably don't have time to increase your reading skills or read faster by large amounts of portions, unless you're willing to dedicate hours upon hours every day into it. But for the large part, you kind of can't really do much for VR other than get better at looking for keywords, looking for qualifiers, which are descriptive words. So just an example of that is if they use, for example, most in a question, that's more likely to be correct than if they use all in the question. Just because, let's just say if I was to make a statement, all Chinese people like rice, right? That's obviously going to be more likely to be incorrect than most Chinese people like rice, right? You kind of see what I'm getting at there? I'm Chinese, please understand. That was not racially motivated, it was the first thing that came to my head. And I apologize if they use all in the question, just because, let's just say if I was to make a statement, all Chinese people like rice, right? That's obviously going to be more likely to be incorrect than most Chinese people like rice, right? You kind of see what I'm getting at there? I'm Chinese, please understand. That was not racially motivated, it was the first thing that came to my head. And I apologize if that did offend anyone. But moving on to DM, the second section you can. DM is one where one thing will make the difference between you doing well and you're not, and that is the whiteboard. Now, I'm not going to go into techniques in too much detail, just because it's a short how to cram video, but the general idea of it, and the general idea of DM is to kind of portray the information provided in STEM as best as possible on the whiteboard. And that way, you can kind of just look at the whiteboard or look at your shortened version of STEM immediately and find out the answer to your logic patterns, your search engines, or whatever, right? Especially those ordering patterns where it's like, oh, Tom came first in the race, who came second last, whatever. Make sure you're drawing it out. If you can do it in your head and do it faster than you're drawing out, congratulations, you're a genius. You don't need any help with DM. But for the most people, less like normal people out here, more normal people out here, probably draw it out on the whiteboard. That's your best bet. That's an important thing to get down pat. Third section, QR, right? It's maths. Now, it's maths, but it really isn't. You just see the times tables and stuff and finding basic geometry areas. The math isn't too hard, right? Your percentages, ratios, whatnot. If you haven't got that down pat, I recommend maybe touch up on some year 10 maths. Just make sure you're set for that. But the difficulty is more in recognizing what the question is asking you to do. And the best way to do that is to learn from your practice questions, because you don't have time in, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, a month to really cover all of it. The best thing to do is do a practice question. If you're not understanding what it means, write down the specific interpretation of the question type you've encountered, and make sure you never mess up the interpretation again going forwards. That's it for QR. And also get good using a calculator, which I suggest you get a calculator with a number pad. Like this one, number pad right here. I'm not sure if you can see it. Actually, give me a second. Yeah, this is a number pad, right? Get a keyboard with that, and make sure you get used to using the number pad, because it goes a long way, right? Let's just say you save 2 seconds per question using the number pad. By the end of the next question, you save like a minute or more, right? I didn't do the math, so don't quote me on that. But you save a lot of time, essentially. Best way to get better at it is using it more when you do questions. If you can, right? If you have extra time, I used to play video games, so that's why I kind of was used to it already. But you don't have time to do that, just use it in your QR questions more and more. Last section, AR, pattern recognition. You should know I cringe a bit saying it, but it's a method I use to cram. I didn't really use it to cram, but it's pretty useful for cramming, I guess. It's called the sperm, rose, arse technique. That's just a list of patterns, really. Normally, you wouldn't want to memorize patterns, but if you're cramming, I guess knowing these off the top of your head and being able to recognize when they come up is at least a start. I'm going to have sperm, rose, arse listed out right here. I don't know where it is. I'll probably edit it and find it being a headache later on, but well, I might not put it in at all if I can't bother, but you get the point. Recognize.
If you're applying to
There we go, it's this guy. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to know what this means quickly.
Okay, so the preliminary UCAT results are out and people are panicking. I just want to go through what is going on and to give you a bit of an idea and help you understand what to do with your application based on what you see here. Now, what I always say is these preliminary results always end up being a bit of a prediction game. However, if you watch the previous videos I've done throughout the years, you'll always see that my crystal ball for some reason seems to work quite well. So I'm going to tell you what I would expect to see or kind of comment on what I am seeing and try and give you a bit of a rationalization behind why and what's going to happen. So the first thing to bear in mind is, and I've noticed this year, is that people are really putting off their exam. You've got about 51% of predicted testing. So we had 21,882 take it, and we think we're going to have another 21,000. Now, Firstly, that would be a pretty high number for a given year, usually around the 37,000 mark. But what I am seeing is a lot of students putting it on. I think because they're feeling the pressure this year, because the exams changed. Now, typically, the people who do it in the first half are the ones who do best. That's probably down to the fact that if someone's not doing well, naturally they'll delay their exam a little bit. So the mean score always tends to come down. So the 1939 is the preliminary score. Now, you can see here, the one last year, they've adjusted the one last year for what it was if you take out the abstract reasoning. Because remember, the exam has changed this year. Now, what I would say is don't rely too much on this because by the very nature that they've taken out a section, the nature of the exam has changed. You've got people who were focusing on a 5-element exam or a 5-section exam. Now you're focusing on a 4-section exam. So that means it's different. And that means that people, if you imagine, you've got your focus spread on fewer things. So people will naturally tend to do a little bit better in those bits, right? So we had a slightly lower reduction last year. And that's, I remember I predicted that last year because we only had one exam. Last year we moved from the BMAT and the UCAT to just the UCAT. So remember those people who maybe are applying to Oxford and some of the London universities who were doing 2 exams now had their attention less spread and they were focused just on one. How much do we think this will go down? And what decile do you think that will land you in? Because that's the main thing is where do we end up? If we're in the top decile and above, that's gives us the opportunity probably to apply to our Oxford and Cambridges, our London universities. The lower and lower we're getting, the more we're thinking of the universities that are less heavily weighted for the UCAT or don't have a UCAT cutoff score. So where do I think this will go? So you see from here to here is actually about 43 is exactly a 43-point reduction. So you're looking at about a 15-point reduction per section. So that's what people are failing to see when they're going like, oh, it drops by about an average of 50 to 60 points, so it'll be about that again. Well, that is a bit simplistic to look at it like that because, like I say, we've got people focusing their attention now on just 3 sections. However, what I think is happening is there are 2 camps. There are people who, now that we've taken out the abstract reasoning, which is the thing that people could gain the most, could improve the most on, and get better scores on. Now that you take that out, I think you basically have 2 camps of people: the people who are able to improve their score, and the people who are really, really struggling to improve their score. Once you take that section away, no matter how much, if they've not had the right sort of training or not going about it the right way, are struggling to get that score up. So my prediction is probably that this mean score will come down, and I know it sounds silly because I've gone all around the houses to say it'll probably come down by about 60 points, because I think we'll see a bigger drop than normal, maybe as far as 70, and I think it will be a bigger per section drop. And I think when you factor in for the fact that people are focusing more on fewer sections, that will mean that they'll do slightly better. But I think you'll have those 2 camps of people. So all in all, it kind of evens out in a way through all of that random logic that I've kind of explained. But usually, like I say, I tend to get a good feel for these things. So I reckon we're probably going to end up in a very similar sort of area. I think we'll end up about 1870 for the score. So what does that mean? What do you do in terms of applying? Where should you go to? Now, I think this is the kind of thing now where this year, with the personal statement changing and various other things, this is the time more than ever, if you've not got a great UCAT score, is to make sure you nail all of those other things. Again, I always say the UCAT's really important, but everything else is just as important. We really need to make sure that we're nailing all of that stuff. So we're getting a lot of people coming to us on the Future Doc program at this stage of the year who are really unsure because of their UCAT score. Warning, you should have come to us before. We could have helped you get a better score. But if you want to make do with what you've got, or even maybe you've got a great score and now you don't want to mess it up at the last hurdle, this is the time to come to us for a little bit of support with getting your application straight, making sure your personal statement's right, make sure you're choosing the right 4 medical or dental schools that are right for your situation, not just based on a UCAT score, but on.
Bro, I thought he was gonna tell me. I didn't think he was just gonna say, "Oh no, no, no." Okay. Okay. So looking at practice questions, right? Look at practice questions. We look at practice questions. Oh, I'm on average. Let's go. Look at this, right? One, oh no, one or two, one or two, 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 two. Like I'm pretty much banging out all of these really good. No, I don't even want to do one. Let's just do one now. Hold on. Stop banging. Okay. None of Oda's phone cases are red. Some of Giselle's phone case. Oh shit. Okay. Phone cases. Olaf. None are red. Some of Giselle's have stars. Some are purple, but none of her phone cases that are purple or have stars are also orange. The phone cases either belongs to Olaf or Joe. If the phone case is purple and orange, it must belong to Olaf. No. Wait. Yes. Hillary could own the phone case if it's orange with stars. Yes. A phone case with blue and green stars could be Olaf's or Noah's. Yes. If the phone case is red with stars on it, must belong to Giselle. Yes. Giselle owns some red phones. That's not mentioned. How could own a phone case if it's orange with stars? Well, yeah, why not? Giselle could own a phone case if it's orange. Oh, has stars on. Okay. But still, I'm not getting any zero. Well, I did get 1-0 a while ago. Okay, syllogisms. Okay, let's do this. Okay, of all people waiting in line, Henry is the only one not being patient. Okay, so they're patient with a Henry. More than one person waiting in line has somewhere else to be. One plus somewhere else. Okay, at least one person waiting in line is being patient, even though, yes, if a person in line is being impatient, it must be Henry. Yes. If only two of the people waiting in line has somewhere else to be, if only two people waiting in line has somewhere else to be, one must be Henry. No. If a person waiting in line does not have somewhere else to be, they must be patient. No, because we don't talk about Henry. He could be impatient. Henry has somewhere else to be. No. Let's go. 2 marks, 54 seconds. Hold on. I'm gonna mess. Ah, shit. You cat. My closest. You cat. Baddie friend. You're my closest you cat baddie friend. Okay. Video on syllogism, however you spell it, thing. And now I average like 9 out of 12 for 6 questions. Something like that. Something like that. So, when you get like, let me just see more. See if I heard you. Okay. But if you see that, there is a banana peel on the floor. Don't ask why. Right, it's because I couldn't bother putting it in the bin if you wanted to ask why. I was just sort of talking to myself. Okay, so yeah, I've banged that out now. Now I'm gonna try decision making. I'm just gonna try to do it calm. Yeah, I've pretty much banged out all those. I've pretty much banged out all those. Uh, eh, we'll see what that is like. Logic puzzles. We're gonna do untimed logic puzzles. We're gonna see how it is. Oh my lord, bro. Okay, so we have Austin, June, Safra, Max, Krisha. Okay, so we have climb, ice, gym, paint, chess, golf, and tennis. Oh my lord! Okay, hold on. We do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay, June does not play tennis. Oh my lord. June does not play tennis. Laura's hobby takes place on. There's no Laura on my board. Oh, Laura's the last one. Wait, what? Austin, June, Safra, Max, Krisha, Hannah, and Laura. Oh my god, I forgot Laura. Laura hobby takes place on a Wednesday. Okay, painting takes place at the weekend. It's not Max's hobby. Painting takes place on the weekend. Austin climbs. Austin climbs. So I'm going to cross out all of these now. Austin climbs and Safra does gymnastics. This is the problem, yeah? Neither Max or June play golf. Neither Max or June. June's hobby does not take place on the weekend, so June cannot be painting, and June does not go on the weekend. Let's not go on the weekend. Chess takes place later in the week than ice skating. Chess takes later in the week than ice skating. Later. And the day before tennis. And day before tennis. Okay. Okay, chess. Okay, we'll just highlight that. Okay, Hannah takes place on a Tuesday, and it is not golf. Okay, golf takes place one day after climbing. Bruh, we don't know June's hobby. Gymnastics takes place on a Monday. We don't know that. Mac's hobby is not tennis. Don't know that. It could be. Climbing takes place on a Friday. We don't know that. Wait? No, we don't. Bro, what kind of question is this, bro? This is actually taking the piss. This is such a long question, so we know that's not that. Okay. Okay, we know it's not this one. Okay. Chess takes place. It goes chess, ice skating, and chess is the day before tennis. Hannah's hobby, golf takes place a day after climbing and the day before ice skating. So golf goes there, and if golf happens after climbing, we have climbing area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we have 5 down. Oh my lord, bro. And we know chess happens in the weekend. So if chess happens in the weekend, that means tennis must be on a Saturday. Tennis is on a Saturday. Now we can cross all of these. Tennis must be on a Saturday. And whoever does chess, who we don't know. My days, bro. We're not getting told anything here, man. Okay, we can then do all these, I guess. Okay. June does ice skating. No, she doesn't do that. Max's hobby is not tennis. It could be. June does not play tennis. Laura's hobby takes place on a Wednesday. Okay. Painting takes place on the weekend. Wait, I've just done that wrong then. If painting takes place on the weekend, oh wait, no, I never said chess was on a. Never said chess was on a thing, did I? How am I meant to do this? Okay, I'm gonna try a different type of method for this one then. Because I straight up would have just skipped this. I would have saw this man was asking for flipping 5,000 flipping things and just said nope. Okay. So this is what I would have done. I would have done a thing, right? Okay, I would have got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? I I would have got the things. Golf takes place. Okay, it goes golf takes place one day after climbing. It goes golf, climbing, and one day before ice skating. And it goes ice skating, right? How it takes place on Thursday. Okay, this is not T. Not T, right? Chess takes place later in the week than ice skating. Okay, so chess is somewhere here. We don't know where, so we're going to put a question mark on it. And the day before tennis, but tennis is right after it, okay? June's hobby does not play. Okay, we know that. Painting takes place on the weekend. So painting has to be here. So painting can be here or here. If it's here, we'd know it's not June. Gymnastics could take place on a Monday, because, okay, because if we put painting here at the end, okay, we know June's hobby cannot be painting. There's not a weekend painting a weekend. It can't be gymnastics because gymnastics comes after something. Max's hobby, climbing takes place on a Friday. That's possible. What's the news about Three Austin climbs and South Africa's gymnastics. Golf takes place 1 day after climbing. If golf comes after climbing, and then painting's in the weekend, but tennis is always painting's on the weekend. Tennis is in front of it. I'll put three in front, so it has to be Max's hobby, it's not tennis. Oh, fucking minutes, and I got it wrong. Bro. Bro. Yeah, I'm looking at that question. I'm seeing the fact there's 50 flipping names. I see the fact there's 50 different names. I'm just not attempting it, bro. I'm comparing their weights and heights. Like the tallest boy, not the heaviest. Okay, you got Zach, Mark, Jack, and Billy, right? Zach is taller and heavier. Alright, let's do this. Shorter, lighter. Okay. Zach is taller than Billy. The shortest boy is the lightest. Jack is lighter than Billy. Mark's weight is in between Jack's and Billy's. Bro, I don't know how I would do this, man. I really don't. This is so confusing. Right, by weight, yeah. It goes Bill, Jack. Mark's weight is between. Okay. We got Jack, Mark. Jack's weight is lighter than Billy's. And Mark is between Jack's and Billy's. Okay, this is weight. Okay. The tallest boy. And Zach is taller than Billy. But Zach is taller than Billy, so it can't be that. Okay, so we got height. So wait, this must mean Zach's at the bottom then. No, it doesn't. Height. Okay, we got Zach. No, because Zach is heavier than Bill. Okay, so Zach is heavier than Bill. The shortest boy is the lightest, so Jack's here. And then that means Mark is height. Who's the tallest boy? Zach. But the tallest boy cannot be the heaviest. So how does that work? Zach is taller and heavier than Billy. Okay, Zach is heavier than Billy, right? Zach is heavier than Billy. Jack is lighter than Billy. Mark's weight is between Jack's and Billy's. Okay, the weight is right. The weight is right, okay? Now height. Now we're gonna do height. Zach is taller. Zach is taller than Billy, right? The shortest boy is the lightest, so therefore the lightest is the shortest. Jack is the smallest, right? Oh, is that currently the thing? Okay, that means Mark is the tallest. Okay, it took a bit too long. Decision making, but it's like there's so many things to do. Okay, so we have Illinois, Gemini, Nada, and Amelie. They moved into the house May, July, Sept, and no. Each brought a special item. We have Telly, Game, Speak, Piano. The piano was bought by the resident in September, so they go together. Illinois did not bring the speaker into the house. Illinois did not bring the speaker in the house. Nada moved into the house before Illinois. Amelia did not move into the house in May or July. Okay. Gemini moved into the house after everyone else. Okay, so Gemini joined last. Gemini joined last. No, Gemini joined last, so she cannot have joined those. House after everyone, and she bought either the television or the games console. Okay, so I'm gonna just put a thing there. Okay, so if Nada moved in the house before Illinois and Amelia didn't join in, that means Amelia, that means Amelia joined in September, Illinois joined in July, and Nadine, shit, September, Illinois joined in July, and Nadine joined in May. Okay. His special item can definitely. Okay, so now we just need to. The piano was bought by a resident who moved into the house in September. So Amelia brought in the piano. Amelia brought in the piano. Then we know she didn't bring in these. So therefore, Illinois did not bring the speaker into the house. Okay, it doesn't help. Janet moved in the house after everyone else, and she bought either the television or the games console. Because she still could have bought the speaker. Only Amelia. What? It doesn't make any flipping sense, man. How is Nada's one? How? It's true. Yeah. Shoot. And there was a tick there. Bro, but still, man, that's such a long question. Bro, no one's actually doing that question, though. Well, I say no one's doing it. I'm sure some people are, but I ain't doing it. Where's my thing? Harry is not seated beside Nico. Okay, so Harry and Nico must be like that. James is seated to the right of Nico, so Anna and that. Okay, James and Alvin are not. That's not true. Harry is seated on the left of James. Oh, yeah, technically. What? How? Yes, we've got Harry and Nico. James is seated on the right of Nico. Okay, I forgot he was facing that way. Yeah, I actually just read the question wrong. I actually just read the question wrong. That's completely my fault. I just read the question wrong. Read the okay, Harry. Okay, Harry, Incognito, James, and Kylie are four friends. Haru, New, Speed, and Argentina. Okay, then we went surf, hike, arrow. Okay, none of the friends. Indigo went to Peru. Okay, the friend in New Zealand did not surf or hike. Okay, friend in New Zealand did not surf or hike. James did not go Sweden. Yeah, sure. There was no surfing. No, there was no surfing in Argentina. Okay, Kylie went to New Zealand. Kylie went to New Zealand, so she didn't go to any of those. Kylie went to New Zealand. Harry went canoeing. Harry went canoeing. Okay, so if Harry went canoeing, he didn't do any of those. Harry went canoeing. Question the following. Harry went surfing in New Zealand. If you was in New Zealand, you could not do those two. So Harry the parachute. Harry went canoeing in Argentina. No, Harry went Sweden. James went paragliding. No. Indigo went surfing in Peru. Okay, so Indigo went surfing. Indigo went to Peru. Okay, like I'm happy I did that question, but still, it's taken a long time. You get me? Speaking of, actually, some problems. It's what I don't know. You can't practice skipping. Fuck. I'll flip it out. On that. Achieve has 120 students. Okay, so we're going to do achieve, believe, courage, and determine. Achieve has 120 students, which is the same number as. Okay, we'll put this as the number then. 120. Yeah, mostly. Courage admits two-thirds of the students. Okay, two-thirds is 80. So courage does 80. And believe admits double the number of determine, so 240. Believe has as many undergraduates as, okay, believe has more undergraduates as archive. There are 120 postgraduates in determine. Okay, so all of them are postgraduates. Courage has the same number of postgraduates as undergraduates. Okay, 40. Achieve admits the same number of undergraduates as postgraduates as determined. 120 under. Okay. And believed it does more. So it's just two. Flipping out, that's like a question and a fucking half, mate. That's like 5,000 questions in one. Bro, let me just ask ChatGPT, like, T, right, what are the worst questions to skip in decision making? Just flipping hell, man. Okay, I'm gonna go piss now. Okay, yeah, so I'm just gonna skip all of the logic puzzles. Because, bro, there's just too many questions. There's no point in me trying to get good at them if I'm gonna average like 2 minutes on them anyway. Like, yeah, there's just no point. I'm just gonna skip all the logic. Let's say, yeah, hold on. Mock exams, yeah. Okay, let's see. The one I did 640, right? Let's find this. Decision made. This one, right? 640. Okay, there is. Hold on. How many logic puzzles? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only six. There's only six logic puzzles. Right? Let's say, right, hold on. If I skip them all, okay, no, let's just see. I got every question right, apart from those six. I get 41. That's still 830. Let's say I get one right. Still 830. That's still pretty high. So I'm gonna skip them all anyway. I'm doing dog on them. I'm doing absolutely dog on them. Skip them, and then just learn to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Just learn to get 8 more marks. I got 28. That's 36. Get 36. Oh yeah, and then 36. Make it 39. Oh shoot, this one wasn't a decision. I don't even know. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Okay, now let me go on YouTube because we're gonna watch the guy on how to do them. Why is my screen like that? Why is there? That's not even my Mac screen. So why is that even there? That's just straight up not my Mac screen. Okay, watch later. Oh, he'll be in my light. I can't filter. What's his name? It's like Joel something, I swear. Yeah, same thing. Okay, we're gonna get all this. Assumptions. Huh? I don't remember this being a thing. Or is this just strongest argument?
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So I hope you've enjoyed the 2 videos I've uploaded so far. And so next on our kind of journey through decision making is recognizing assumptions. And check if you've got your clause right by often removing it.
Okay. Should the maximum speed limit on motorways to reduce be reduced? Okay, yes. Reduce speed limit. No. No accident. The accident rate at lower speed limit is no different. Okay. Yes. No, it is difficult to drive. No, the real point of slow drivers. No, it's B.
And the rest of the question should still make sense. So here it does. So what we are basically looking for is we are looking for an answer. And we're not looking for an answer that talks about improving road safety. We're looking for an answer that talks about road safety. Okay, so A says, yes, reducing the speed limit will cut harmful emissions. So A is wrong, and the reason why it's wrong is like I said once again, let's go back to our car dealership scenario. Imagine I walk in and I say to the salesman, should I buy this car because it's efficient? And he tells me, yes, it's a really fast car. Okay, like that's cool, but it's not exactly what I want as an answer. That's not what I'm looking for. You see, that's the kind of idea, essentially. Okay, let's have a look at B. B says, no, the accident rate at lower speed limits is no different to that at high speed limits. So it could be B because it talks about road safety, because it talks about the accident rate. So let's move on from that. So let's have a look at the other options. C says, it's difficult to stop drivers ignoring the present speed limit. A new speed limit will be ignored in the same way. Okay, so it's not C because once again, while it may raise a valid point about the practical implications of implementing it, it's not relevant to road safety. And D is wrong because it just makes a generic statement. It says the real problem is slow drivers, it would be better to have a minimum speed limit. If it said the real problem is slow drivers, they cause 95% of crashes, then that would be fair. Do you see? But this is just a generic statement. It doesn't have any meaning behind it. So therefore, our answer is B. Just a couple of things I want to highlight. Clauses don't always have to be at the end of questions. They can be in the middle, they can be at the start. And also, there can be multiple clauses. And if that's the case, then you just need to select an answer that talks about all of them, not just one. Okay? So, perhaps if you'd like to have a go at this one, this question, you can pause the video now, and then I will go through it once you've come up with an answer.
To reduce costs, increase that. Oh, flipping out. None of these mention costs. Okay, C.
Just a quick hint, there is more than one clause here, so just watch out for that. Okay, so let's go through this. So hopefully you may have identified that the clauses are here. So to reduce costs, increase accuracy, and improve turnout. And importantly, we're not looking at reducing costs, increasing accuracy, and improving turnout. We're looking for an answer that mentions cost, accuracy, and turnout. And once again, we know this is the right answer. This is the right clause because if you remove it, the rest of this question still makes sense. So should voting in elections be undertaken online or exceptionally by post? That still makes sense. Okay, so let's go through the options. So A says yes, online or postal voting will be more convenient for voters and will therefore be more likely to improve. Therefore, be likely to improve overall turnout. So this is wrong because it only talks about 1/3. It only talks about the turnout idea. Okay, that's fine. But like I said, normally there'll be an answer that talks about everything. B says electronic voting and counting will provide results more rapidly and with less chance of error than present counting methods. Once again, it only talks about 1/3 of it, less chance of error. So it only talks about the accuracy idea. So that's wrong as well. Let's have a look at C. C says the necessary equipment will be expensive to buy. Electronic voting will discourage some from voting, and hackers might well interfere with the result. So it talks about cost, talks about accuracy, and it talks about turnout. So therefore, it talks about all three of the ideas. And so therefore, it's very likely that this is going to be our answer. D is going to be one of those blanket kind of things. So it says no such innovations will be changed for the sake of change. The voting and counting systems work effectively at present, so there's no need to change them. And this is another one of those kind of red flags, I guess. It's when it says, oh, the status quo is fine. When it says everything's fine as it is. That's going to be normally another one of those like red flags. Because, as I said, it doesn't mention these kind of ideas. It doesn't mention the clauses. So you can see here, the clauses are at the start. There were 3 of them, and our answer answered all of them. Okay? Just one thing to watch out for, as you can see. So normally when it says to do something, that's normally like a good giveaway of a clause, but it doesn't always have to be the case. Okay? So
Should to avoid fending. It's A.
So in a multicultural society, should religious symbols on funeral monuments be banned from public cemeteries to avoid offending visitors of other unknown faith? So mistakenly, some people sometimes use this as the clause, but that doesn't really make any sense in a multicultural society. It doesn't really give us any direction for the question. In fact, the actual clause is down here, to avoid offending visitors of other unknown faith. And so the question is, in a multicultural society, should religious symbols on funeral monuments be banned from public cemeteries? So remember, we're talking about something to do with offending visitors, that kind of idea. So if we just kind of quickly flick between the answers, you can immediately see that B is going to be wrong because it talks about aesthetics. B says it's much better when you go into a cemetery and see plain lawns without monuments, which simply clutter up the space and look confusing and untidy. C says it would be better if each different religion had its own cemetery, so they would not need religious symbols, as everyone would easily know the person's religion. C is also wrong because it's not about knowing someone's religion. It's about offensiveness, something about offending visitors. It's not about knowing someone's religion. Okay, so then it's between A and D. Mistakenly, a lot of people put A as the answer because they see the offending visitors and they see upset and they think, oh, this got to be the answer. But if you read it, it says cemeteries are community spaces and anyone should be able to visit them when they want without the upset of having religion forced on them. So the first bit of the sentence starts okay, but then it pulls in it takes it too far. It talks about having religion forced on them, but that's not the idea here. It's simply just a symbol on a monument. Okay, so it takes it too far, and so for that reason, it can't be A. So we're left with D, and D is the answer because if you read, it says no, death is a very important event, and families ought to be able to commemorate someone's faith tastefully without being restricted by the intolerance of others. So it talks about the offensiveness side and says, you know what, you should be a little bit more tolerant. And it says no. Wrong because you're being intolerant essentially. Okay, so hopefully that was easy enough to be.
Okay. I'm gonna open another one. I think I'm already sick for decision making, so we're just gonna bang out a couple more. Strongest arguments, We're going to do 3 question sets. Wait, how many are in an exam? Hold on, mock exams, decision making. How many strongest arguments are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, there's only 5. Damn, that's kind of embarrassing, I can't lie. Okay, so we're going to do 5. Okay, boom. Shit. That was a bit anticlimactic. Okay, boom. Should all your to allow for remote learning? No. No. Yes. Hold on. No. Should single-use plastics should be banned to reduce volume landfills? Yes. Should the cost of petrol and diesel be increased in order to encourage people to use public transport? Should companies be required to pay a carbon tax? Should people be allowed to bring their dogs and cats to work to improve morale in the office? Bro, I've never done so shit. What? That literally makes no sense. I'm sorry, what? A gives a reason why plastic in landfills is bad, but does not support banning as a way of reducing the burden. Do not buy. B is the correct answer as it suggests that banning single-use plastics will reduce. It doesn't say it will reduce. It just says constitute of a large proportion. Hold on, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT this because this is that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And if anything, yeah. Let me just go over here. Volume. Proportion. Okay. Okay, so I think I spent a bit too fast on the questions. Let's slow it down a bit. Okay, now we're gonna do 5 questions. Should companies adjust their so that they flexibly cover all religious holidays? It is unfair non-Christians the amount of ownership work. Okay. Should drugs be legalized rather than restricted in order to reduce prevalence of addiction? Reduction. That's got facts. Should online video stars and millions of followers be paid a salary similar? It says online video stars. Should barriers be erected alongside moats to prevent wild animals? That's wrong. It's supposed to be that one. Wait, I don't actually know. It's none of these. None of these. Where's that one? Shit. God, man, what am I doing wrong? What am I actually fucking doing wrong, bro? There's nowhere I actually clicked on that one. I think I don't even mean to do that, I can't lie. I didn't complete all the questions, so I've kind of fucked myself. Reading English literature from past centuries is necessary to expand our cultural knowledge. Yes, all the works of literature form the basis of it. Yes, there is a wide variety of different words used. Should a weekly after-school class for gifted students be mandatory to ensure? Yes, there is no during class. No, gifted students often struggle with not no. No, many gifted students choose to study outside of school. Mandatory classes do not improve their performance in exam. Officers should have fruit available in their break room instead of biscuits. Account officers. Yes, fruit have high sugars. Yes, having snacks in the break room. No, fruit glucose could lead to increase in food wastage. Should postal letters be replaced entirely with email and text messaging instead? Yes, it would remove a huge amount of post so you can then concentrate on delivering parcels instead. I suppose. Yes, posting letters is slower and more environmentally damaged. No, some types of correspondence can only be sent through the post if it's tracked. Should doctors be able to choose their own working hours in order to improve quality of the care they can prove? Yes, doctors are currently overworked. Yes, doctors are more busy, they're more flexible in their shifts. No. My days, but what am I doing? Yeah, expand literature. But, like, what? Should more natural predators be introduced to increase? Yes, because risk of nature decay, we should try to make it. Yes, just reducing might eliminate the competition. Yes, no predators of great skills will also kill. Next time for great skills. No, we should. Should the start of the school day move to 9 a.m. to improve learning? Different from adults who attend school will allow them to see more accurately and retain information. That's more like that. Is a substantial reduction in energy price? Yes, humanity means more interest in it. Yes, countries will benefit from spending less energy, but it's more education for housing. They also count money. No, it may increase beneficial for the world. No, it may increase for the environment. Cyclists should be recycled to take a cycling fishing course to reduce risk of accidents. facing a complication of type 2 diabetes, be encouraged to adopt a new diet plan alongside treatment. Diet plan. But it says natural predators of grey squirrels. It doesn't say of squirrels, it says of grey squirrels. But again, I've done those questions before, so it's like, do I really count that?
Hello.
Welcome back to part 2 of the recognizing assumptions as part of decision making. So today we're going to be covering those non-clause questions. So I hope yesterday's video on the clause questions made sense. So non-clause questions are slightly trickier, but I still think that they are more than manageable. And like I said, these are going to be the really crucial ones when it comes to kind of being able to save as much time as possible and kind of getting those through the first question, and then from there we will kind of go on into the later questions. Okay, so the first question, should the government make wearing a uniform compulsory in all schools? So here you've got one of those keywords that I talked about, compulsory. So the idea here is that it's going to affect everyone. So we have to have a look at which answers, it's going to affect all students, sorry. So we have to have a look at which answers are going to be talking about affecting all students, essentially. Okay, so let's just scroll down through the options. So A says, yes, school uniform prevents students from being judged by the clothes they wear. Okay, that could be a fair argument. Let's have a look at B. B says, compulsory school uniforms prepare pupils for the world of work. So while B may sound like a valid argument, remember, not everyone does wear uniform. And the whole idea here is because it's compulsory, everyone is forced to wear uniform. So this wouldn't be necessarily true for everyone. C says, enforcing school uniform would add teacher's workload. That's wrong because it considers only the head teacher, whereas the question is more directed towards students. D says school uniforms are expensive for parents to purchase. Once again, what I said about money, while that may be true, it's not necessarily a factor here, and also focuses on the wrong scope. It focuses on parents, not on children. So therefore, A is going to be the correct answer. School uniform prevents students from being judged by the clothes they wear. Okay, so you can see once again, you kind of have to be quite ruthless with ruling out. And once again, it's really important to understand some of the keywords, such as compulsory, mandatory, and these other kind of words that they put in there, and to understand how you can answer and approach these questions. Okay, so on to our next question then. So should squash be made an Olympic sport? So see if you guys can try and identify some of the potentially key ideas here. See if you can get good at this idea of ruling questions out. Another thing that I wanted to just talk about really briefly as well is with non-clause questions, often the answer is the ones that makes most sense. I know that you're told not to be, subjective about the questions and such, but sometimes you can rule out answers that don't really make any sense. Okay, cool. So if you guys like to pause the video, have a go at it, and then see if you can get the same answer. Okay, so let's go through this. So should squash be made an Olympic sport? So A says, yes, if tennis is an Olympic sport, then squash should be as well. Well, that's quite weak logic when you think about it, and it kind of narrows it just to tennis, right? So like, obviously, it's important that tennis is an Olympic sport, but that's not necessarily a valid reason why squash should be. Okay, so remember, the key ideas in an argument are basically the Olympic sport idea. So let's have a look at B. Squash is played in more than 185 countries and played by millions of people each week. I will probably put this as our answer because what we know about Olympic sports, the whole idea is it's meant to be worldwide. It's meant to be like a global celebration of athletes and sport, and this seems like a valid reason. It says it's played in so many different countries, played by millions each week. C says, no, there are already 3 racket sports, another would not add anything to the Olympics. So first of all, so I'd say C is wrong because, first of all, how do you know that? And secondly, it's not like there's a limit to the amount of racket sports. Okay, it's not really too relevant here. D says millions of people do not enjoy watching squash. The game is too fast for spectators to enjoy. Once again, I would say that they are just making kind of a blank, generic statement, which is not necessarily true. Okay, so they're kind of just assuming something. So this is a little bit of what we picked up from non-clause questions last time around. But I think, yeah, you can definitely see that non-clause questions are a little bit more challenging to do, but I think they do still make sense if you try and identify what keywords are going to be most important. Okay, so on to the next one. From society's viewpoint, should the law forbid the consumption of alcohol? Okay, the important idea here is it talks about it from
I'm kind of curious on what squash is.
So 3-1 lead for Hasal this opening game. Oh, that's clever.
Seems all a bit too easy.
society's viewpoint.
Should the law forbid? Kind of only one that mentions society.
Yes, drinking involves health dangers for individuals, so society should ban alcohol consumption, even though this would cause substantial unemployment, hurt sales outlets and producers, and infuriate existing customers. So this answer is wrong because it talks too much about kind of businesses. Okay, it talks about unemployment, it talks about outlets, producers, consumers. Okay, it doesn't talk about really society as well. It just focuses too much on the business side of things. B says yes, when individuals consume excess amounts of alcohol, they often get into fights, hurt themselves, and damage properties, necessitating frequent and costly interventions by police and health services. So a ban would save money. Once again, what do we say about saving money is normally a sign that the answer is going to be wrong. And here especially because it focuses on police and health services, so it doesn't focus on something where it doesn't focus on society as a whole. It just narrows the scope to just these two services. C. No, moderate consumption of alcohol is a shared pleasure for the majority of citizens in all parts of society, so it should not be banned because of the antisocial actions of a few. So I would say C looks like our best bet so far. So it addresses the consumption of alcohol because it says, moderate consumption is okay, and it says it's a shared pleasure for the majority of citizens, so it talks about from a society's viewpoint. Obviously here it doesn't have to be about all citizens because it's not saying it should be compulsory or mandatory or anything, right? It's a different question from before, but it does regard society as a whole. D says alcohol consumption generates revenue from taxes for the government, which pay for many services, and if ban were imposed, new and perhaps unwelcome forms of taxation would need to be found. Once again, it focuses on the wrong people. I think it focuses about the government, and it focuses on taxes, which are not relevant to this because it's asking from society's viewpoint. Okay, so C would have to be the answer. So once again, I think that's the only one that kind of makes sense as well. Okay, so last question.
C.
I'd like to pause, have a go at this, and see if you can harden money and money. Okay, so it's not really relevant here. B says the company survey revealed the ease of ordering food online has stopped employees skipping lunch to meet deadlines. So once again, it's not necessarily about ease of ordering food or about skipping lunch. Okay, you might argue that if you're not skipping lunch, then arguably you're eating, and that's better than not eating. But we're not directly told about what they're eating, so they could be eating, really unhealthy food. So once again, B does not directly answer our question. C says the convenience and ease lead most people to unconsciously order and consume more food than they require. So it does mention something about healthy lifestyle. It's saying that ordering potentially leads to overconsumption. So this could be true, so we'll leave it there for now. D says customers can't control the freshness of the ingredients in the food they order. So what it's trying to do with D is it's trying to make a link between the freshness and the healthy lifestyle. But of course, freshness isn't the only thing that goes into food being healthy. So because it only narrows it to just like one specific area, it can't be D. And so therefore I would say C is the answer because it's the one that most directly contributes to this healthy lifestyle idea. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Like I said, once again, non-clause questions are kind of like a different beast from clause questions. They do have some similarities, but once again, it's about getting good at ruling them out effectively.
Okay, I'm going to have a pee. I'm going to do 5 decision questions. Then I'm going to come back. Now I'm going to move on to the interference one. Okay. Okay. No, not syndrome. No, not syndrome. Okay. Should all first-time parents have attend classes? Should the government subsidize to reduce obesity? Should all ingredients tested for microplastic? Yes, we know these chemicals leaching from plastics into food. We should be aware of the effects these inject. This is tested plastic poisoning. No, no humans would have to ingest a huge amount of plastic. No, only seafood. Should GPs be prohibited from internal facts in the UK to encourage travel where yes, you might yes, no places. No, no internal facts is right here. Take that. What's this? Okay, so why is B wrong? Okay. Okay, I'll stop streaming. I'll be back. Actually, let me load up the videos quickly. Let me get that beautiful guy up. George Cat. My boyfriend. George, come here for a kiss. Okay. Dante, you can stop then. Okay, text brackets, explain. That's quantitative reasoning. UCAT DM. Interpreting information. Cracked. Oh, flipping out, mate. It's cracked. Mastering UCAT Venn diagrams. Okay, tomorrow, yeah, I need to master Venn diagrams, probability, and we're doing interference now. Well, in a minute, I'm actually going to take a break.
Hello everyone and welcome.
Interpreting. What if there's a playlist? Does it have a DM playlist? Oh damn, that's just a probability one. Flip it out.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So